Hello, viewers, and welcome to Fleet Action Report. Today is episode 35, Guest Stars, Part 5. I'm Nikodas.
I'm Grebog still, I think. Yes, that's
And
probably
we
going to
also
become a
have,
thing.
well, with you, who knows? We also have a guest with us today. I'd like to introduce Midnightage. He has had some previous contact with some of the voice actors we're going to be discussing. So a couple times here through the show, I'm going to give the floor to him. Hello, Midnightage.
Hello, all.
All right, so Grebog, I'm going to give you the floor to start with here. How have you been this week?
Um, my body wanted to tell me one thing. I decided I'll play a lot of the Fallen Sky, apparently, or not Fallen Sky. Why did I call it not No Man's Sky? That's it. Fallen Sky is a TV series that I watched at one point. Um, No Man's Sky. I've been playing a lot of that. So did some raiding in WoW too. Some Mythic Plus stuff and all that fun stuff. But I probably have spent more time in No Man's Sky. Recently got a new ship and got it fixed and geared up so it now is better geared than my previous ship.
Which
So,
you should probably just salvage and make money off of. So there you go.
I was debating that. I
You don't
was
need two
debating that.
shuttles.
So, which one of you got the other into it? Because Nikodas mentioned No Man's Sky to me the other day, and it felt like he was soft selling it to me. Like, come play this with me.
So
I
I
haven't done
kind
it
of
yet.
was. I kind of was. It all started actually with some guys I work with. They talked me into getting it, so I bought it on Steam, and then I approached Grebog with it, who had already owned it previously that I did not know about. So he's actually returning to No Man's Sky. I'm completely new at it. The odd thing is that out of the three guys that I work with who play the game, none of them have teamed up with me for a multiplayer game yet. The only person who has is Greb. Well, no, today I had a different guy at work team up with me. So I've had Grebog and then this other guy at work, but not one of the ones who recruited me to play the game. So it's it's been a thing, but it is a fun game. Just a lot to do in it. A lot of resource collection. That's the big part of the game. And
Exploration.
exploration, finding stuff and buildings and ships and stuff like that. It's not terrible, although it is a absolutely massive universe that you can explore.
I might have to give it a shot. I remember seeing the reviews for it when it came out, and them not being exactly stellar. But
Uh,
I've
it-
I've heard it's gotten considerably better.
I guess the newest patch, which just came out recently, was a big deal, and it did add a lot of quality of life improvements, and the game is refinding its popularity. So I've been having fun with it.
Solo play, when you first start out, I will say this. It is very daunting, I think is the best way to describe it. Um, and I picked it up probably in 2018 ish because my shuttle that I had been flying is no longer available. You can no longer find it. So, but yeah. So when Nikodas came back, well, picked up the game and was like, "Hey, anyone else play this?" I'm like, "I have it. I haven't played it in a long time, but it's fun."
I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's pretty much been my week too. I mean, no D&D this week, nothing to talk about there. No Man's Sky and STO have been the vast majority of my game time this week. Anything particular that our guest would like to talk about? Midnightage?
Oh, I actually did do a little bit of D&D this week. For the most part, though, I most of my time has been spent either working or playing STO. I did finally catch up with the Orville though last night.
Nice.
As I was working, I finally watched season two. Uh, I know I'm, like what 2 years behind on that compared to everyone else, but it was fun. I like it.
That's a fun ride. Season 3 should be coming out sometime this year, I think.
That's what I was reading, but I not sure.
Last I heard, it was supposed to be last year, but of course, like everything else, the pandemic kind of delayed everything. So I have not seen any dates, but everything I've read says sometime this year.
Well, we could do what one of the races in Star Trek did to solve pandemics and whatnot. If we just create some nanites, they will help heal our bodies and will purge any kind of pandemic, and we can
Yeah, and
all
then
work together.
And then we all turn into the Borg and start assimilating the universe. Sounds
Well,
like a plan.
We're curing the universe one assimilation at a time.
This week, I'm going to move on, guys. This week in STO has been fairly light. We do have our current year-long event running. The first event should be coming, not necessarily to a close, but anybody who's been active every day should be completing that here within the next couple days, getting their Molar Sword weapon. Again, even after you have the individual prize, you can continue to earn progress towards the year-long prize, which is a special lockbox or R&D ship, 1,500 Lobi, or 2 discount tokens for free Zen store ships. So that's your options there. What's this other thing we got going on here on the notes?
So the reason I'm mentioning this one, so Star Trek Online and Perfect World are holding a giveaway. You do have to give $5, but it's to a good cause. It's Boys and Girls Club of America. If you go to their news page, you should see a article about it. There's a link in there that you can click on, and it takes you where you need to go to donate and get entered. You have until March 18th to enter. And the reason being, I am mentioning it here. Normally, I don't care so much about some of the contests they do. The prizes. One of them is the 2021 Anniversary Legendary Bundle. And if you were like me and didn't want to fork out, $200, $300, whatever, this could be a way you could get lucky and get some fun in the game. Something that you might have wanted but didn't have the money for. The other 2 prizes are the La Serena from the official Star Trek Starships collection, which is from Hero Collector. They make models, and I think they sell a lot of various starships from Star Trek Online and such. And so you if you want to have something on your bookshelf or on some display case, I mean, could be something cool to have. There's another ship also, the Avenger class battlecruiser. Again, it's another one of the Hero Collector models, so could be cool. Good luck.
Probably stand more chance to win that than you do the lock boxes in game. So there you go.
Well, plus it's $5 to get entered, and it goes to a good cause. So.
All right. So let's. Our main topic here, our primary target, is once again we're going to celebrate some voice actors that returned to Star Trek to reprise the roles of characters they played in the live-action shows. We will, of course, run episodes or parts of episodes so you can actually hear the voice actors as they're doing their part. But the list today, so in 2018, STO received the expansion Victory is Life. This expansion dealt with the Herc invasion and a bunch of the races kind of bonding together in order to face off against that. It included the Dominion, so we got some old Dominion characters to reprise their roles. And then a lot of the Deep Space Nine actors. Unfortunately, we did not get all of the Deep Space Nine actors. But we got several of them. Our full list is as follows. Let me just put this out there because I'm probably going to butcher a few of these names here. If you need to correct me, Midnightage, feel free. So it's Nana Visitor as Kira Nerys. Rene Auberjonois as Odo.
Pretty close.
Armin Shimerman as Quark, Andrew Robinson as Elim Garak, Alexander Siddig as Julian Bashir, Jeffrey Combs, who actually played 3 characters, Brunt, Weyoun, and Thykir Shran.
Perfectly in character for Jeffrey Combs, by the way, who played like almost every other character in Star Trek that you've ever seen on screen.
He played a bunch.
Quite
I
a
actually
few.
looked that up. Yeah, he played a bunch. Chase Masterson returns as Leeta. Max Grodenchik. Did I say that one right? Grodenchik?
I believe it's Grodenchik, yes.
Okay. Who plays Rom and Sovak. Bumper Robinson as Dukan'Rex. Salome Jens as the female changeling. And I did not look that up. Is this a return? Is she reprising the role?
Let's ask Google.
That's what I was like. Let me pull up either IMDb or Google, and we will find out, won't we?
I meant to look that up ahead of time, and I did not. We've got Michele Specht as Loriss, and Mary Wiseman returns as Sylvia Tilly. Now, Sylvia Tilly is actually not in the Victory is Life expansion. She was brought in to reprise her role from Discovery in some of the Discovery content. And we did highlight her in a previous episode, so we are not going to run any episodes with her in there today, but I did want to include her as just acknowledging that she was in this year of events.
Google agrees. Salome Jens is, yes, the actress who played the female changeling in Deep Space Nine.
Okay, good. So she was brought back. Good, because the reason I question that is when I was looking up what missions she was in, it mentioned that she was in some of the older, like the hidden stuff, the missions involving the 2800, which originally it was not her. They had used somebody else in that role, and I have not played that mission in probably a couple years at this point. So I wasn't sure if they had when they brought her in, had her redo those lines, which apparently they did. So I good. I like to see that.
My only question was, does she actually go by Salome or Salome?
I don't know.
That is a fantastic question, and Wikipedia does not have a pronunciation guide for her name. So question mark.
I only asked because doing ancestry, I looked up, found one of my ancestors, and it was noted that her name spelled the same and was pronounced Salome. So,
Well,
maybe
that is probably the correct pronunciation, and that's my mistake again. I butcher a lot of names, even in the course of my job, which I have to pronounce a lot of names in the course of my job, and yeah, I tend to butcher a lot of them. So that would not surprise me if I'm messing this one up as well. So I'm good with Salome or Salome.
Salome. I mean, just because old timey folk used to pronounce it that way does not mean that's the way it's still being pronounced.
I get that, but I think it's pretty that way. So. All right, so we're going to jump in a mission here. This is from the Gamma Quadrant arc of missions called Storm Clouds Gather. Let's jump in here and see if we can listen to some of these voice actors. Oh, I should probably invite Grebog to party with me, too.
I mean, maybe.
Might be handy. Maybe.
You're just going to run around on a planet by yourself.
I don't want to do that. It's much more fun having you along.
Yeah, I was like, I want to click start, but something's telling me not to yet.
Okay, begin Storm Clouds Gather. As you can see, the station Deep Space Nine has been damaged from a recent Herc attack. and a bunch of ships surrounding it are in need of repairs. This was a very serious conflict in the game. Okay, moving on over.
Talk to all the people you used to watch on TV.
Yep, pretty much. Nothing wrong with that. Loading screen's taking a little bit of time here.
Hello. Nice to be working with you again.
Okay.
I've been assigned to assist you here on the station. The leaders of the 4 major delegations have asked to meet with you prior to the summit meeting. Their offices are located here.
Right off the bat, we have Aaron Eisenberg as Nog. Now, you may notice that I did not list him in the list of voice actors. That's because Aaron was already hired as a voice actor in STO previous to this expansion. So when I looked up the list of names for the 2018, his name was not among them. But he is here, and he has a pretty substantial role in the course of the storyline. So there you go. Aaron Eisenberg.
Ambassador Odo is here, coordinating security efforts.
I'll be blunt. The Herc have decimated most of the Dominion. All but one fleet gone. It's all the Jem'Hadar can do to keep our remaining worlds from being laid waste. There is no diplomacy with the Herc. We don't know why they're attacking.
Oh. I lost my interact there. But that was Rene reprising his role as Odo. Let's run over here.
A perception, or no, insight check. That's it.
Insight?
Yes.
Wrong game.
Chancellor Jempok has an office here.
Oh, and here's Jempok. All right. Would it not? Oh, there it is.
This summit may not end.
We're not talking about Jempok today. We will. That conversation is going to be had.
Consul Datan's office.
This summit may
And Datan. That's not one of the ones on our list.
Wow.
That's another one we talked about previously.
Well,
And Admiral Quinn.
Several Alpha Quadrant leaders here for the summit.
And there's Aaron again. Oh, right. Okay.
Kai is here in the Bajoran temple.
And here's Kira.
I suppose Admiral Quinn sent you down here to see where Bajor stands. I can tell you we're worried. The Herc were a few ships away from ravaging our homeworld, and if the Dominion falls, they'll be back, and we'll be the first to face them, so Bajor stands ready. We'll do what we can to stop the Herc, even if that means joining forces with the Dominion. There's something else I should mention. I've experienced visions recently, a sign from the prophets. I see a place I've been before, a world beyond the grip of death. It's the home of a former Kai, and it's in the Dominion. I should also mention that I've seen you in this vision as well. I believe we're going to take a journey together soon.
Signs and portents indeed. I think it's interesting that Kira became Kai. I mean, I know some of the novels kind of are pushing in that direction, but I found that interesting.
It was actually the intention of the original creators to a degree. Have you ever watched the documentary, the DS9, was it the 25th anniversary? Well, let me look it up real quick. I want to
Sure.
make sure I get this right.
You're not here to update your ensemble, though if you'd like a few suggestions, I'd be happy to provide some. In the meantime, let's talk about serious business, shall we? I'm sure you'd like to know Cardassia's position on the Herc problem. It's simple, really. They're a menace, and one we should deal with swiftly.
So there's Andrew Robinson as Elim Garak.
Surprised? Will there be anything else?
For him, many of the voice actors here reprising their roles did a fantastic job, but Garak specifically, it's almost like he never stepped out of it. His inflections are almost the exact same as in the show.
I was wondering when you'd come along. I'm guessing you're here to talk about the Herc and what we want to do about them. It's no secret that the Ferengi aren't a military powerhouse like the Klingons. Most of the time, we would have been wiped out without, did you?
There's the Grand Nagus. Again, that's another one that's not in our list right now.
I know each of them well, and I can
You can always go talk to Morn too, but you know.
Morn, who talks everybody's ears off. Here is Armin Shimerman as Quark.
How sweet? Dabo? Can't blame me for trying to find profit while I can. My fool of a brother, the Nagus, seems hell-bent on getting the Ferengi into this mess. Not a lot of profit in fighting the Herc, 34th rule or not. You can't spend your money when you're dead.
Here's another one that's very much like he never left the role.
We'd be better off sealing that wormhole and saying goodbye to the Herc and the Dominion forever. I'd miss the Tullaberry wine, but I'd get over it. Can I get you something?
Good old Quark. Oh, there's somebody else in there I missed. There's Leeta.
It's been a while since I've been in this place. I can't believe Quark still has that hollow me in here. It's a little embarrassing, to be honest. I wish we were all here under better circumstances. Then again, DS9's always been a trouble magnet. I guess peace is a little too much to ask for around here. My husband, look, if I were this, was there something...
That's Chase Masterson. Ah, and here's the doctor.
It's been a while since that business at Korvat, hasn't it? You're looking well. My compliments to your CMO. As you can see, I've been recently recommissioned. I'm doing what I can to get things in order here after that business with the Zenkethi and the Herc. We're still treating casualties, and it looks like we'll be seeing more soon. A lot more. The situation is compounded by the presence of civilians, both local and from other systems, even the Dominion.
I guess maybe I shouldn't have brought my hologram Julian Bashir along. That might get a little uncomfortable.
Might get a little weird.
I mean, Bashir was the original. It was originally intended for him to be the model for the second EMH.
That's true. What happened there that changed their mind?
If you recall the episode, his history came out as
that's right.
Altered.
That is the episode where that happened, wasn't it? Fair enough.
Well, everyone's here and no one's...
There's Quinn again. Our friend Kumarke, that's another one that we detailed in a previous episode.
I oddly appreciate Kumarke, and I don't really know why.
Greetings. It is agreeable to see you.
And here is Jeffrey
Facility 4028.
Coombs. Am I saying that right? Is it Coombs or Combs?
Combs.
I trust
There you go.
conveyed everything you learned from us to your superiors. If I may be so bold,
See, don't worry, people. Nikodas will second guess himself all night long. He'll say it one way, then the other way. Question.
Hey, I have an expert with me who can do the corrections for me.
Hardly an expert, but names are hard.
Weyoun. This is another one that they. This is an interesting thing. So right here in this conversation, he mentions Facility 4028. That mission is no longer in game. Chronologically, it happened previous to this episode, but it was removed and added to a hidden list that you can only access once you're max level. So new players who get to this point in the game there's a character talking about Facility 4028, and the player's not going to know what they're talking about. I found that very interesting. But there again, originally the Vorta that was in that previous episode, that hidden episode, was a different Vorta and a different voice actor. And then they updated it when they hired Jeffrey Combs to reprise the role.
Thank you all for coming. By now, you should be aware of our tactical situation. The Dominion, as you know it, is on the verge of collapse. We've withdrawn to our
Nice little
forest
cutscene here.
and the lines are holding for now. Without your help, the Herc will win the war of attrition.
So this was the part that I was genuinely impressed the first time I saw this. How well they got the likenesses of every character, except, in my opinion, Bashir.
Well, they aged Bashir.
He doesn't really look like Bashir to me, though, even just in general face structure.
I think it's the beard.
Maybe.
Need I remind
Could
you
be.
that the Dominion came to your aid in the Iconian War? I seem to recall
But
Klingons
they
placed
really
pride
paid a
in
lot
their
of attention in making these models look like
I
the
can't
actors.
I can't even imagine the work that would have gone into that. And here come the Herc.
The most unpleasantly named characters in STO.
Right?
Herc! Herc! Herc!
I think
All
I
right,
might
so
hurt.
seen
Oh wait, no, that's
we've
not.
seen Kira, Odo, Quark, Garak, Bashir, Weyoun, Leeta, Rom. The only ones we need are Dukan'Rex, the female Changeling, and Loriss.
I need you to get to that damaged pylon section and
All right, so let's go ahead and beam out of this one, and we'll start the next mission. We should be able to hit the other characters in the other mission. It takes far too long to fight through the hordes of Herc that are coming up next.
The aforementioned documentary, by the way, is called What We Left Behind, a look back at Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It was for one of the landmark anniversaries. I can't remember if it was 15 or 20. I want to say it was 20. And it was put together by the production staff of the original show, has interviews for the original show, but the conceit, beyond just having interviews with the cast and crew, is that they are pitch meeting a fictional season 8 pilot. So where they would start season 8 if they were to write it today, what the first episode would be, what they think would happen, where they would go with it. And in that fictional start of season 8 for Deep Space Nine, they have Kira as Kai.
Well, there you go then. And they're just picking right up there. All right, so this mission is called The Search. It is also in the Gamma Quadrant story arc. And we open right here with Odo and Garak. And Dukan'Rex. There's one of them we were talking about.
Victory is life.
What an appropriate comment from a Jem'Hadar to open with. And I just got to say, when fighting the Herc, I'm very thankful for my competitive engines. Those things make this fight a lot easier.
It's also worth noting that documentary you can watch for free on YouTube, on the official YouTube Movies channels, with some slight commercial interruptions. In case you're ever interested.
I'm going to have to look that up.
I will send you the link on Discord.
I appreciate that.
Be prepared to cry, because there are some really touching interviews, especially with Aaron and Rene.
I'll have my tissues handy.
Very weepy.
This planet appears to have been abandoned some time ago.
So anyone else find it interesting that Elim is mile backwards?
I never really thought about it.
I mean, I saw that and I'm like going, I wonder if they did that on purpose with making, I don't know. I guess he didn't interact as much with Miles though in the show.
He and Miles never really liked Garak. Never trusted him. They did have a really good episode though, where they went to not Terek Nor, but the other station.
I concur. If my analysis of the station either
Don't go to warp just yet. We're picking up a
Distress signal. You remember that episode where they go to the station and Garak ends up going kind of crazy and trying to kill everybody?
The first time that they go to Empok Nor.
Empok Nor, that's it. Thank you. And I believe Nog is in that episode as well, isn't he?
Yes, I think so. I'm not 100% certain. I know that Nog is in the sequel episode to it, where Quark's magnificent 5, 7, I forget what it is, ends up going there to go save Moogie.
That's true. I remember that. All right, so we're going to see the female changeling here.
I only mention it because your presence is not required here. Explain yourself. As are we. Karema is part of the Dominion. We are here to assist them, if they wish it. Odo commands an expeditionary fleet. It is his to use in a mission to seek and destroy the Herc as he sees fit. My fleet is a defense fleet. It seems the distinction was not made clear to you. How unfortunate.
I will take responsibility for their actions.
Yeah, she hasn't really changed much over the years either. Then again, changelings are effectively ageless, so I shouldn't really be surprised.
You're quite persistent, aren't you? Very well. In the spirit of our newfound pact with the Alliance, I will allow you to proceed, albeit at your own risk. Exercise caution, Odo. It would be tragic.
Well, and she had plenty of spite to keep her young.
True enough. I mean, in-game, we did imprison her for a number of years. All right. There's a really funny scene, I think it's towards the end of this episode, where Loriss gets into an argument with Weyoun. So it's well worth playing this episode just to see that argument. She kind of rips Weyoun a new one, which makes me laugh. Weyoun, the character I love to hate. Although his interactions with Jake were always pretty funny, pretty good.
Was a complicated character, but I think that Jeffrey Combs gets a lot of that in the characters he portrays. You can see a lot of that in. Again, he is. If there has been a 1 or 2 episode or even a recurring character in a various Star Trek series from Next Generation onward, there's a better than average chance that Jeffrey Combs played that character. I can only imagine how many hours he's actually spent in the makeup chair getting various prosthetics glued to his face.
Maybe he likes it.
But if you go back and look through his various characters, there's a lot of that. A lot of his characters have a very rich personality. They have a lot of depth going on to them. You get a lot of that, particularly with Weyoun and with Shran. who I think has a lot of similar characteristics to Weyoun. Very deep into a particular culture, but very interested in the cultures revolving around him.
His portrayal of Shran is probably my favorite. I really liked Shran.
I'm very fond of Weyoun, personally. I think Weyoun is one of the more interesting villains in Star Trek.
I was really glad they brought him back for SEO, Weyoun. I mean, because they make a comment at the end of the series that he's gone forever, and yet they did find a way to bring him back for the game. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, the female changeling says in the final episode, "Oh, that was my last Weyoun," and I believe it's Garak says, "I was hoping you would say that."
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it to Garak. And now we're fighting Herc. All right, so while we run this mission, why don't we just go ahead and turn the floor over here and let Midnightage talk about any characters he chooses to talk about.
That's a little dangerous.
Well, let's. I understand that you've met a few of them in real life. Why don't we start with that?
I have. I've met a handful of the actors. First, though, I thought it would be sort of interesting to put it into context and sort of lay a little groundwork for what Deep Space Nine means to me and to Nikodas in particular. Because it really was one of the tent poles of our friendship. Nikodas and I have been friends for
too long.
25 something going on 30 years, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Hey, I'm not that old.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Sorry to say, but you are. Quite a long time. And we sort of met playing, you had mutual friends into various similar hobbies, tabletop games and various other things. And Nikus and I, in particular, bonded over Star Trek, among other things, but a big part of it was Star Trek, and in particular, Deep Space Nine. When we were considerably younger, we would get together and watch the last few seasons together. Or when we couldn't do that, we would, watch the episode and then call each other and talk for a couple of hours about what happened. Those last few seasons in particular were just a really big bonding point of our friendship. So Deep Space Nine has a lot of personal connection to me as being something that is hugely influential to me. It happens to be my favorite Trek for a variety of reasons, but that not just that. I think it's probably the best written Trek series so far. Though I have to say, this is maybe a controversial opinion. Although liking Deep Space Nine when we liked Deep Space Nine was kind of a controversial opinion, 20 years ago. I think Lower Decks is pretty close.
I was half expecting you to say Discovery. I really, really enjoyed Lower Decks. That was just good fun.
I think Lower Decks is really well written. I think it's got a lot of potential to be a pretty great show.
The bit with Q made me cackle. Go away, Q.
I love Deep Space Nine for what it is. I love the storytelling aspect of it. When it first came on television, TV serials as far as sci-fi in the United States, obviously overseas is a little different. You have like Doctor Who, which had been going on forever in serial, but science fiction serials in the United States was relatively rare at the time of Deep Space Nine. Really, there are only two that I can think of. there was Babylon 5 and DS9, and there wasn't a whole lot else there that was doing the kind of storytelling that Deep Space Nine did. I loved the acting. I thought all of the actors were great. The writing was great. I loved how unabashedly political Deep Space Nine was. Star Trek across the board is political. It always has been. Deep Space Nine was. They just went to the walls. Everything they ran so. They just took it and went with it. They weren't afraid to do whatever. Like it felt like they had this constant mentality that they were always about to be canceled. So they they never held anything back, and I appreciate that about the show so much. It's still my happy place. There are only a handful of television programs that I can go back and rewatch again and again, and it just sort of takes me back to the place where I first watched them. Deep Space Nine is one. So, kind of going from my teenage years into when I started working and my career. I've been working in print publishing for not quite as long as I've done Nikodas, but close. And some of my first jobs were working for anime and science fiction magazines and tabletop gaming magazines back in the day. Back when now kids, once upon a time, we used to cut down trees and then smash all the bits and then print words on the little leaves of paper that came out from them, and then sell them. And that's what I used to do. I used to write articles and interviews. I used to do convention correspondence for Starlog and for Inquest and a handful of other different magazines, which are no longer in existence anymore. So I kind of working on their behalf and other magazines that I used to write for. I have on occasion met and interviewed a non-zero number of Star Trek actors.
I'm going to interrupt just for a second here.
Sure.
Dukan'Rex there had a speaking part. All right, you're good. Go ahead.
I like Dukan'Rex. I had to actually go and get the holographic version of him because I liked him.
Nice.
Never use him, but I have him.
You were talking about your writing career. Sorry for the interruption.
No, you're fine. So for the most part, a lot of it has been pretty perfunctory. There's not a whole lot of opportunity necessarily to get to know these people on an individual basis, although sometimes that's not the case. I have some more interesting stories that I could tell that I will save for another time because we're being more specific to Deep Space Nine. But I have to say, it was always kind of a treat for me when I was able to talk to somebody specifically from Deep Space Nine, because get a little fanboyish, a little girly. Just I can't help it. The Deep Space Nine cast, in my interactions with them, and again, it's worth noting, they're always going to be, nice to the person who's writing the article, right? They're well trained to have a certain persona when they're interacting with the press. They were always especially friendly, and it really seemed like they were the most happy to be there. You can sort of tell as a press agent who is really looking forward to having a conversation with some guy who's going to write, a 2-page article for, some magazine that maybe a couple thousand people are going to read. And who isn't? They were always very, very happy to be there. They really seemed to get what it was that they offered that the other Trek shows didn't. And it was always really interesting. So, like I said, going back to when Nikodas and I were fans of Deep Space Nine when it was on air, Deep Space Nine was kind of the black sheep of the Star Trek family. TOS everybody loved. Next Generation took a little while for the TOS fans to warm up to it, but the people who came on with Next Gen fell in love with it right away, and it seemed like the TOS fans got to the point where they were pretty fond of TNG. Deep Space Nine was kind of thought to be a little much. You know, it wasn't on a starship. It wasn't the same kind of storytelling. It was the first one that didn't have 100% commitment from Roddenberry because, you know, Gene Roddenberry had grown very ill and then passed away somewhat after Deep Space Nine started. So it was a little bit, it got a little bit of a shaky reception. And you could always tell, talking to the Deep Space Nine actors, they knew eventually the fans would get it. There was enough of a cult following even early on for Deep Space Nine that they knew that maybe they were a little ahead of their time, but that the fans would eventually catch on. And that's kind of what's happened. A lot of the, rank your favorite Trek polls over the last, decade or so, Deep Space Nine tends to float to the top on a lot of those. And that's been really interesting to me. My interactions with the cast specific.
Okay. Before we get into that, there's two things here. Here's Dukan'Rex.
It is not my place to question the will of the founders. Your mind, however, is your own. Do with it as you will, but be warned. The founders do not appreciate betrayal. If the Alliance withdraws from their pact with the Dominion, the consequences could be severe.
So that was Dukan'Rex, as presented by Bumper Robinson. And then here's that conversation I mentioned earlier.
I'm surprised to see you here, Weyoun. Aren't you usually at your founder's side, hanging on her every word?
It is a message from said founder that brings me now. She would remind you of your purpose, to serve the Dominion as a whole.
How kind of you to deliver the message in person. Thank you for your service. As for my service, the ambassador shares his wisdom and guidance with me. Truly, he is a most benevolent god. Why should I not serve him? He is a founder, after all.
Serve the founders, yes, but also serve them well. Do recall the fate of your predecessor. She thought she served the founders well, quite possibly to the moment her unfortunate life came to its conclusion. As we both know, she was greatly mistaken.
The same could be said for your predecessor as well, dear Weyoun. Have you forgotten his sins? I know the founders haven't.
This is a private conversation.
And that's the end of that conversation. So that would be Loriss, played by Michele Specht, and Weyoun, still played by Jeffrey Combs. Yeah, that's a fun conversation. I enjoy that. I'm glad we got there. All right, so I'm going to turn back over, since you were going to talk about some of the actors that you've met. In the meantime, Grebog, would you join me on ESD?
Visits to the Dominion are
sure.
Don't you think?
Okay. So, before we get on that train, and I've been talking a lot, I want to give you guys space to chime in too, but Bumper Robinson, when I first played this mission, it took me a moment to realize that Dukan'Rex is the same Jem'Hadar from the DS9 episode The Abandoned. And it's the same actor who played the older version of that Jem'Hadar. I didn't realize that until the end.
They dug deep to bring him back into the fray.
Really
back
did.
into the fold.
For all of Star Trek Online's problems, and there are quite a few problems that I have with the game as a whole, they clearly do appreciate the fans and try to, when they produce something, try to make it something that the fans will like. I can appreciate that, and I think that effort really did shine. Those are some of my favorite missions in the game for sure.
Mine too. I enjoy them. Both this arc and the arc they did with the Voyager crew, I thought was handled really, really well. And it was nice, it's having the voice actors reprise these roles is almost like sitting down with an old friend.
A little bit. I think I said something very similar to that the first time I played through them. The fact that the Deep Space Nine episodes are here is probably the reason that I'm playing STO to begin with. So, I kind of wish I had come back when they had done Mission Gamma to begin with, or the Victory is Life expansion. But
you still came back. That's the important thing. You still got to experience it, the fun stuff. So when we do these episodes involving the voice actors, one of the things that we really like to do is remember the fallen. And in this case, the named actor that we have in our list, who has unfortunately passed, is Rene Albert. What is it? Albert John. I'm going to mess it up. Cannot do that name.
Auberjonois.
There we go. Auberjonois. He unfortunately passed in 2019. When an actor who played a character in one of the shows, a major character in one of the shows passes, they add it to this memorial here on ESD, and they put a quote from that actor on here. Rene's is very simply, "Don't forget." Real quick before I pass things over again here, I want to I want to have some honorable mentions. Aaron Eisenberg, as we mentioned before, played Nog, and he is involved in these missions, even though he was not in the list for 2018. Brock Peters, who played Joseph Sisko. Cecily Adams, who played Ishka or Moogie. Tiny Ron Taylor as Myhardu, who was the bodyguard for the Grand Nagus throughout most of the series run. John Colicos, who played Kor. And I am very, all of these guys really, but in particular for me, John, he passed before he was able to reprise his role of Kor in the game. Now, Kor did die during the run of Deep Space Nine, but of course, like many other characters that we've seen in the game, he could have come back as a hologram or a historical episode or something to have him play that role again, and that just would have been amazing to me. His acting as Kor the couple of times that he showed up was just stunning. And then, of course, Michele Barrett, who played Lwaxana Troi and did a lot of the computer voices for various Star Trek shows. Unfortunately, all of those actors have passed on, so we won't be able to see them in the game or hear them. We could see them. We wouldn't be able to hear them in the game. I thought that was worthy of mention. All right, I will hand it back over here. You were going to talk about a couple of the actors who you've met.
Yeah, I can do. For what it's worth, about Kor specifically, I did actually meet him at a convention in '97, I think. I would have to go back and look. An incredibly, incredibly sweet, surprisingly quiet man. But very, very, very nice. Really, really lovely gentleman. And wouldn't necessarily have to be a historical episode. I mean, half of STO is about time travel.
True enough. True enough.
I mean, once you get past the Iconian missions, it's like the entire rest of the game is time travel, time travel, time travel.
Until you get to the new, well, no, even the new stuff, because Jula traveled through time. So there you go.
Time travel, time travel, time travel. Not that I'm complaining. I think that stuff's actually pretty interesting. But how about this? Is there any of any of the actors in particular that you're interested in? Like,
well, since
I'm dominating conversation a little bit.
Since we've brought it up, did you ever get to meet Rene?
I did. I did. I did an interview with Rene for Starlog, I believe, in '99, something to that effect. One of the absolute kindest, nicest people that I've ever met, and very interested in what my interpretation of Odo was. There are, and I'm clearly one of these people because I've done nothing but dominate this conversation since I started talking. But there are two kinds of people that I've noticed in doing interviews over the years. There are the people who want to talk, and the people who want to listen, who are more interested in what you take away as a fan than what they're trying to bring as an actor. Rene was very interested in what my interpretation of Odo was, what I took from Odo. What I thought of Odo and Quark's relationship, what I thought of Odo and Kira's relationship, and the subtleties that he brought to it, and very, very soft-spoken, very sweet, but also very direct. He didn't hold back much, if I recall correctly. It was quite a long time ago, but very, very lovely person. And when I found out that he had passed, I choked up a little bit because he was one of those actors who, not just from Deep Space Nine, but from his other roles, his more comedic roles. He's done drama, he's done comedy, he's done a lot. He was a very prolific character actor. He just had been a big part of my life growing up, and it was very, very sad to see him go.
I can hear it in your voice, the way you're talking about him. There's a respect there, almost a reverence, I would say.
I would say that's.
So you and I have been talking our butts off here, and Grebog is just sitting back in the shadows. So let me ask, Grebog, is there any particular character that you would like to ask about, or maybe hear more about?
I don't know. I love hearing stories. I also love telling stories, but in this instance, I don't have any stories to provide. So, I mean, whatever. So you've given us your top one. What would be your second, or another top one?
For me,
it'd probably be hard to. I want to hear Midnightage's one of his top story. What he feels is one of his personal favorites.
I mean, my top story is something that I probably shouldn't tell on the podcast. It does involve Star Trek actor. It doesn't involve Deep Space Nine actor, but Nikodas knows it.
Oh yeah. We'll get to that. We'll have you as a guest later. We'll get to that story.
Yeah, I don't think I should tell that one publicly.
Is Shatner in here?
I plead the fifth. So I've forgotten I told you that story too. Yeah, so unfortunately, my experiences with the Deep Space Nine cast have been largely professional. I haven't had much opportunity to have what I would consider off time with them, so to speak. A little bit here and there, like, when we're setting up an interview, there's a little bit of chit chat beforehand, sometimes, or it depends on the kind of schedule that the junket is doing. There's a lot of there's a lot that goes into how these little interviews and stuff go behind the scenes. They're usually done at conventions. Usually, it's like after they've done their signature line, so they're tired, they want to go back to their room, they want some private time. So they're trying to speed through them, and they're not always the most pleasant things. I've definitely had experience with not with Deep Space Nine actors, but with other science fiction actors that were not nearly as pleasant. It was very clear that they were just done. Not that they were rude, just they were ready to be done for the day.
They had a long day.
They did. So I can't say that I have a lot of what I would call, in-depth friendships. I have actually made friends with a couple of the people I've interviewed. I will leave that on the table as well, but not for the Deep Space Nine cast specifically, and in part because there's a little bit of, like I said, there's a little bit of fanboying going on there. It's always a little difficult when you're more excited with certain people than others to be like, trying to contain yourself. Every single one of them that I interacted with, though, was absolutely lovely. Probably my favorite interview out of the Deep Space Nine cast that I ever did was with Aaron Eisenberg, who was maybe the most excited person I've ever interviewed to be interviewed.
That does not surprise me.
He was, I believe that we had 20 minutes set aside to have a conversation after. The con doesn't matter. It was at a convention. We had 20 minutes set aside to have this conversation. We ended up taking something like 2.5 hours. And he was just exuberant. He was happy to talk about the prosthetics. He just whatever topic I wanted to come up with, and he was so happy that I got it. Part of our conversation was I am of the personal belief that, and this is one of the reasons that I absolutely adore Deep Space Nine. I think that the most complete character arc for any character in Star Trek since the beginning was Nog. Nog starts out as this kind of misanthropic, that's maybe a little hyperbolic, but this kind of young troublemaker, and through his interactions with the various cast, and kind of put it into the Gene Roddenberry aesthetic of what Star Trek is, through his interactions with humanity, he kind of shines a light on what humanity can be, the utopia that humanity is presented as in Star Trek, and how it betters his existence and his purpose going forward. But also, he is reflecting back onto us our own problems. I mean, he starts out on this kind of troublemaking child, and who can't read. Jake teaches him how to read, helps him, earn this education, and then kind of decides to make his own identity. He's still a Ferengi. He's still profit driven, but he's redefined for himself what profit means. The episode where he asks Sisko to sponsor him to go to the academy is one of my absolute favorites in the series, and it almost always makes me tear up, because when he tells Sisko, I don't want to end up like my father, he's taken this identity, but when you see him later on in the series, he's still Ferengi. He's still seeing things in the great material continuum. He still values his Ferengi culture. He's just chosen to define himself in his own way. And I love that about him.
Despite his uncle's fears.
Despite his uncle's fears and encouraging his father to even go through and do the same. Like, it's that beautiful idea in Trek that, a good act ripples, like that. And that's supposed to be Gene Roddenberry's ultimate vision for humanity in Trek, that if we can overcome our own problems and be that beacon of good, that goodness will ripple throughout, and everyone we interact with will then become their own beacon and ripple forward. Jake is kind of the catalyst for that for Nog. But Nog's own actions then, influence Rom, and Rom influences Quark.
And Leeta.
And Zek, and Moogie.
And Zek.
It's a really lovely thing. And then you get to even see Nog's idealism tested when he loses his leg, and in the episode In the Pale Moonlight. And him have to deal with trauma, which is and come back stronger for it. It's such a beautiful, well-rounded character, and that wouldn't have happened without Aaron at the heart of him, giving him that much depth. It was a really lovely portrayal, and we talked about that for quite a while.
Yeah,
he was very pleased that if I recall his exact words, I'm so glad somebody gets it.
And since we've talked about him, I'm going to bring this up real quick. His quote that they have on the plaque here is, "May this year be everything you want it to be. Everything that you want for your life begins each day, and I truly hope all of you have an amazing year. Make it what you want it to be. Rule of acquisition number 267. Wish not so much to live long, but to live well. I have lived long, and I have lived well, and that is my wish for all of you. Play a Ferengi." Hashtag play a Ferengi.
He was a really lovely guy.
Unfortunately, we are out of time on this episode. I know, right? We'll do another episode and bring you back where you can talk some more about this stuff. We'll come up with a good topic for you. I appreciate it. I'm sorry that we have to cut you kind of short here.
Good.
Next week, my plan is to do Enemies Part 7 to touch base. We did the Iconians on our last Enemies episode. Now we're going to go beyond the Iconians and talk about the newer threats that have come to STO.
To Infinity and Beyond? Oh, wait, that's a whole nother series.
Wrong universe. That's Disney. Disney does not own Star Trek yet. I mean, they're kind of assimilating everything, so who knows, but not yet. As always, if anybody listening has any suggestions or questions, concerns, look us up at www.fleetactionreport.com. All of our contact information is there. We would be happy to accept any suggestions and answer any questions. Again, I'd also like to thank Midnightage for being with us, and despite his comment to the contrary, offering his expertise. I will leave you guys, as I always do, with the quote from John Delancey as Q. See you out there.
Live long and prosper.